Hey everyone, welcome to The Explainer. Today we're jumping into a really fantastic story about integrity, deceit, and ultimately the triumph of justice. It's a great tale about how your character can be your biggest asset, even when it feels like you've lost everything.
So, let's dive right in with a story that really gets at this question, following a man whose virtue gets put to the ultimate test. We're about to see what happens when pure intentions go head-to-head with some serious greed.
Okay, first up, we've got to meet our hero, Mahesh. This guy's a farmer, and his dedication to his land, well, it's pretty extraordinary. He's really the heart and soul of this whole story.
And for Mahesh, this isn't just some empty phrase, right? It's how he lives. I mean, get this. One night, a massive storm hits. He wakes up, grabs a spade, and just runs out into the pouring rain to dig a drain, all to save his crops from flooding. That's the kind of dedication we're talking about here. Meanwhile, while Mahesh is out there working his fingers to the bone, there's a huge crisis going on at the royal palace. The queen is incredibly sick, and the only thing that can save her is a fruit from this one special seed. But here's the catch. It will only grow for a farmer who is truly pure of heart. So the hunt is on for someone who is honest, kind, and just a genuinely good person. So this is where things get really interesting, because that royal quest, it's on a collision course with the greed of a local merchant, a guy named Seth Chand. And this is where our conflict really kicks off, showing us how ambition, when it's unchecked, can get really toxic really fast.
So here you can really see the two sides of this coin. On one hand, you have Mahesh, who is hardworking, honest, and just loves his land. And on the other, you've got Seth Chand, who is greedy, deceitful, and will do pretty much anything to get that land. It's a classic setup, virtue versus vice. So the merchant comes up with this just awful plan. First, he tries to buy the land fair and square, but Mahesh says no way. So he switches to sabotage, sending his clerk to secretly poison the soil with chemicals. Then he has the nerve to act all sympathetic while mocking Mahesh for his barren land. Finally, when Mahesh is broke and desperate, he swoops in and buys the farm for a tiny fraction of what it's worth. See, he doesn't just want the land, he wants to break Mahesh's spirit to get it.
So just when you think things can't get any worse for Mahesh, I mean, he's hit rock bottom, forced to sell his land. Who shows up at his door? The king's soldiers. The timing is just unbelievable. Turns out, after asking around, the king is totally convinced that Mahesh is the only person in the entire kingdom with the character needed to save the queen. He's brought to the royal court, completely in the dark about what's going on. But here's the kicker. This whole royal honor thing, it comes with a terrifying threat. The king, who has no idea Mahesh doesn't even own his land anymore, basically says, "Don't mess this up or it's off with your head." And poor Mahesh is so terrified, he can't even get a word out to explain his impossible situation. So, they hand him this one single precious seed. The queen's entire life, the fate of the kingdom, it's all riding on this. And this is the whole problem. He has 0 acres of land to plant it on. None. He's facing execution for a failure he literally can't prevent. He's completely trapped between a king's command and a merchant's con. Okay, so this is where the story really takes a turn. With everything on the line, his back against the wall, Mahesh discovers the truth, and he comes up with a plan that is, well, it's brilliant. So driven by suspicion, Mahesh sneaks back to his old farm. And what does he see? The land is thriving. It's covered in lush, healthy crops. How is that possible on barren land? And then, hiding nearby, he overhears the merchant bragging to his clerk about how they used chemicals to trick Mahesh. And just like that, the truth is out.
So now Mahesh knows the truth, right? But what's an honest guy supposed to do against the powerful cheater? How do you even fight back when the deck is stacked against you? Well, it turns out with a little help from the king's own minister, they come up with a very clever trap.
So the plan they cook up is pretty genius. They decide to fight deception with deception. Mahesh is going to disappear, and everyone will assume the worst. Then he'll pose as a ghost to haunt the superstitious merchant, using the guy's own guilt against him to scare him into a confession. Okay, so the plan is in motion, and you won't believe how well it works. It all comes to a head in this super dramatic scene, right in the middle of the king's own courtroom. I mean, this is basically a masterclass in psychological warfare, because the merchant isn't just being haunted by a ghost, he's being haunted by his own guilty conscience. He and his clerk get so terrified that they fall right into the trap. They burst into the royal court, begging the king for protection, and in their panic, they confess everything.
And at that exact moment, Mahesh and his wife walk out from hiding, alive and well. And you can just imagine the merchant's face. His terror just melts into pure shock. As he realizes he hasn't been haunted by a ghost, he's just been completely outsmarted by the very man he cheated.
So, with the truth finally out in the open for everyone to see, our story reaches its, let's be honest, very satisfying conclusion. Justice is about to be served.
And things happen fast. The land documents, they're immediately returned to their rightful owner, Mahesh. The merchant, publicly shamed for his greed. And Mahesh, he's finally free to do what the king asked him to do in the first place.
With his own land back under his care, Mahesh plants the special seed. A plant grows, it bears the life-saving fruit, and you guessed it, the queen makes a full recovery. The whole kingdom celebrates, all thanks to the honesty and grit of one good farmer. And for his virtue, the king rewards Mahesh with 1,000 gold coins. It's this amazing moment that proves his true wealth was never just the land, but his incredible character all along.
So, when you look at the whole story, it's pretty clear, right? Greed and deception almost ruined a man's life. But it was his integrity and, a little bit of cleverness that ultimately delivered justice. Which kind of leaves us with a big question to think about.